All right, what is going on, everyone? We should be live and recording. So, hope you guys are having a great day so far. Great week so far. It's been a great week for the most part on my end. Did end up having like a weird 24-hour stomach bug a few days ago, which was awful, but feeling a lot better now. Really exciting stuff going on regarding our clients, just all the progress they're making. But even in my own fitness journey right now, started implementing a little bit more powerlifting into the mix. I had taken a little bit of a break from powerlifting. Mostly because I had a goal of getting down to a certain body weight. I wanted to get to a healthier body fat percentage for myself. And while doing so, while dropping weight, now not super quickly, right? Still doing it sustainably. But as you lose a lot of body fat and you're eating in a fat loss phase for a decent amount of time on and off, your strength does dip a little bit. And that can be challenging psychologically to kind of see like your squat, bench, and deadlift numbers go down. But right now, I'm in a period where like I'm thinking of maybe doing a longer kind of maintenance muscle building phase. So I'm excited to just kind of see like build back my strength up and see where I can get now at this lower body weight and see how strong I can get there, and maybe even compete. If I can find a meet close to where we live here in the near future. And if I would compete, I'd be competing in a lower weight class than what I did last time, which would be kind of exciting to see if I can, hey, let's see if I can match or PR my powerlifting total and progress while being an entire weight class below. So we'll kind of see what happens. So I'm excited to kind of dive into that again. Obviously excited about just the warm weather starting to come a little bit more, sun being out a little bit more, birds are chirping in the morning, which is an amazing feeling. So really good stuff there. And I also mentally have been doing so well. I've been really being intentional about trying to stay off of social media a little bit more, doing less scrolling, and even putting less pressure on myself to create so much content all the time and just be like, hey, like, let's focus on serving our clients, focus on when I have downtime instead of scrolling or feeling like, okay, I need to post multiple times a day and create all this stuff. Let me like dive into some reading and master my craft even more and learn even more. And I've just found like disconnecting from social media a little bit more has made me realize just how petty social media is at times and how some of these things that like, I'll scroll through and hear people talk about and they feel like a big deal when you're constantly chronically online. When you're offline and you're off social media more, you realize these things don't really matter too much. And like, the life in front of you, what's going on in front of you, the people you're around, like physically, matter so much more. So I don't know, just some really good stuff happening there. But wanted to go ahead and dive into a Q&A, quick Q&A today. I have about four-ish questions that I want to go over that you guys submitted. If you were in the Facebook group and you're not submitting questions when I make a Q&A post, please do so. That's what I'm here for, here to help give you guidance. This is my way of giving you like some form of coaching for free, right? Through these videos, through these lives, through these podcasts. So let's go ahead and dive into some of these questions here. So let's go with Leslie. Her first question was, I've been seeing creatine gummies, haven't looked too deep into it and haven't looked at the cost either, but are the gummies as good as creatine monohydrate powder I'm currently using? Gummies would be easier for me to eat or take in regards to taking them when I'm traveling over the weekend, but wasn't sure if it was as good as the powder. So unfortunately, creatine gummies tend to not be as good as the actual creatine monohydrate powder for a couple of reasons. One is creatine is very sensitive and breaks down in moisture or breaks down over time. And the way a lot of these creatine gummies are made, they're made with obviously like water and moisture and sugar inside of them. And that can cause some of that creatine to break down. Also, a lot of these gummies are made by the creatine kind of being coated on the outside of the gummy in a sense. And when the gummies can kind of like stick together, sometimes like you might grab one gummy that has this amount of creatine actually in it and another gummy that has a different amount of creatine in it. So it might not always be super consistent there either. And then another downside is these creatine gummies tend to just be more expensive as well. So you're having to maybe have like 4 or 5 gummies just to get your 5 grams of creatine. And that might be, maybe, I don't know, like a big portion of the bottle that you actually have or the container. And you might end up spending like double, triple the amount of money by getting the creatine gummies versus the regular. So that's a big downside too. And a lot of these creatine gummy companies, there were a few like scandals I saw online a few months ago of people like actually taking some of these creatine gummies and testing them to see, okay, how much creatine were actually in them. And it was quite a bit less than what the actual label was saying. So a lot of these gummy companies aren't like third party tested, meaning they don't have like some other company that's not affiliated with them testing them to see, okay, is actually what's on the label actually in this product. So I don't typically recommend creatine gummies for all of those reasons. I would just stick with like the creatine pure monohydrate powder. I get mine from bulksupplements.com, but I would just stick with that. And if you have a weekend where like you're traveling and you don't take your creatine with you, it's not going to make or break your results long term by any means. If you're traveling every single weekend, even that, like if you take your 5 to 6 grams of creatine every single day, Monday through Friday, and then just miss out on Saturday and Sunday, let's say, like your muscles are still going to stay pretty saturated with creatine to get the benefits of it long term. Like you're not going to really notice. Like if you have any little dip in creatine storage in the Saturday and Sunday that you aren't able to take it because you don't take your powder with you, it's going to be refilled up pretty quickly. So I wouldn't stress it. I would take it when you're home. Like if I ever go on vacation or I do travel, here and there on a weekend, I typically just don't take it with me and just start taking it back up, again, once I get home. So now Tiffany's question, I'm probably thinking too much into this, but when I'm something that's cooked like chicken, do I need to adjust the weight when I'm putting it into my app since raw chicken generally loses about 25 to 30% of its weight when cooked? For example, when I weigh cooked chicken, I generally multiply the weight by 1.3 to estimate what the raw weight would be, assuming the nutrition info on the package is for raw chicken. So yes, that is exactly how I would do it. So you can either multiply it by 1.3, or you can divide it by 0.75. Both are going to give you really similar numbers. And so, if you're listening to this and you're not really sure what I'm referring to, when you're logging your food and you have a package of raw chicken breast that you bought from Giant Eagle or the store, and you scan that package to pull up the nutrition info to log it in your food tracking app, the nutrition info that pops up, the nutrition info that you see on the package is referring to the raw state of the chicken or the raw weight. So if you log 4 ounces of chicken by scanning it and log that specific brand, if you weigh it out after it's cooked, like let's say you cook it in just a pan with no oil or anything or moisture, but just use some pan spray and cook it in a pan, the weight that chicken has after it's cooked nutritionally is going to have a different value than 4 ounces of it weighed raw. Because when you cook something like chicken or ground beef or any kind of meat, it is going to lose moisture. So that heat is going to evaporate some of that moisture. Some of that moisture is going to leave from that piece of meat. So it's going to lose some weight in water. Now, it's not losing weight in like calories or protein. So the calories and protein are all going to be there, but it's going to lose weight in water. So if you weigh out 4 ounces of chicken breast raw and you cook it, it's not going to weigh 4 ounces after it's cooked. It's going to weigh probably about 3 ounces. It's probably going to lose about 25% of its weight in water. Now, it's still going to have the equivalent calories of 4 ounces of raw chicken breast, even though it weighs 3 ounces after it's cooked, because like I said, it didn't lose calories or any nutritional value. It just lost some weight from water. So when you are logging things in your food tracker, you want to log it, like the entry, like the actual item you click on in your food tracker. You want to make sure that you are logging a raw version of that if that is how you are weighing it out. So it's equivalent, or if you're barcode scanning the package and you're logging 4 ounces of like this chicken breast after, logging or scanning the barcode, you want to make sure you're either one, weighing it raw, or after it's cooked, doing that little conversion method that I just talked about, that Tiffany mentioned, where you either multiply by 1.3 or you divide it by 0.75 to find out what the weight of it was raw. So, let's say if you didn't weigh it out before it was cooked, but you have this package of raw chicken breast that you want to scan so the nutrition info pops up exactly, and you weigh it after it's cooked and it weighs 4 ounces after it's cooked, you would do 4 times 1.3, and that would give you about 5.2 ounces that it was when it was raw, likely. And you could log it as that 5.2 ounces of raw chicken breast, or you can divide the 4 ounces by 0.75, and that would give you roughly the same number. But yes, if you are logging it as raw, you want to make sure you either weighed it raw or converted it to that raw weight that way. Next question is from Brittany. So she asks, I'm struggling to find out how many calories and protein I need in a day. So this is a very loaded question. So calories, how do you find out how many calories you need in a day? The simple answer, the quickest answer to get an idea. Now, this isn't going to be a perfect number, but it's going to give you an idea, is to type in Google Mifflin St. Jour equation, and a website will pop up that you can input your stats as far as your body weight, your height, your age, your gender, and your activity level approximately. And it will give you a rough idea and a range of how many calories you likely burn per day if you answer those questions correctly. There's only going to be like 5, 6 different like data points you have to input, so it's really easy. Now, this is just an estimate. It's not perfect. Like, these calculators are not meant to be perfect. They're meant to give you a rough idea of where things will fall. Now, how do you find out if that number is actually right for you, or that range of numbers? Do you log your food accurately using some kind of food tracker, chronometer, or MyFitnessPal is what our one-on-one clients typically use? You monitor your body weight, ideally weighing yourself every day or at least 5 times a week. First thing in the morning, after using the restroom, before eating or drinking anything, with minimal clothing on, and taking an average of your body weight of those 7 weigh-ins or 5 weigh-ins if you only do 5 throughout the week. But basically weighing yourself for 1 or 2 weeks and seeing what your average weight does. If you are logging your food accurately at that maintenance number, that rough maintenance number, and your body weight is roughly staying the same on average. Now, there's going to be fluctuations up and down, like by sometimes even like 2 or 3 pounds, your weight can fluctuate up and down here and there, depending on the day, even if you are technically maintaining your weight, long term, or maintaining your body fat level. So there's going to be fluctuations, but on average, if your weight is staying the same roughly over a 2 to maybe even 3 week period, and you are eating, basically, let's say this calculator says your average calorie burn is 2,200 calories, and you log your food and aim for basically 2,200 calories on average for the most part, and you're logging accurately and correctly. That's the big caveat here. But if you're maintaining your weight eating that much, then that's probably, your maintenance. That's probably your maintenance calories. Now, if you are eating 2,200 calories and you see your weight on the scale is creeping up, and after, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, you've maybe gained, let's say, 3 pounds on average, it's not a for sure fire sign, okay, that your maintenance is actually lower than that and you actually need less calories, but it is maybe a good clue of, okay, maybe this calculator overestimated how many calories I need, and maybe I actually need a little bit less. Or what's really common in people who are very new to tracking their food is you might just be not tracking your food accurately. So that's something else to definitely check. Like, a lot of people will start tracking their food, especially if they're doing it on their own without a coach to kind of double check things. And they will be just like eyeballing and estimating everything, or logging things at the end of the day, like when they're in bed and thinking back, okay, like what did I log? What did I have for breakfast? What did I have for lunch? What did I have for snacks? And putting that all in, and you're going to miss things there. Countless research studies done on this, that even registered dietitians who are very knowledgeable about food, if they're not logging their food like as the day goes on and using a food scale and being accurate, they might even be about like 300-400 calories off from what they're actually eating by just like recalling and roughly estimating things. Even people who are really knowledgeable about food. So super important to always double check that. Like, are we actually using a food scale and tracking our food very accurately? So something to always check. But if you're eating a certain amount and your body weight is staying the same, then that means that's probably your calorie maintenance. Now, to go off of your question a little bit more, you asked how many calories and protein I need in a day. Well, it depends on your goal too, right? Like, is your goal to maintain your body weight and just like stay at this, maybe you're at a healthy body weight or body composition, and stay here and progress in the gym and have high energy and get stronger and maintain your health at the current body composition you are now? If that's the case, and if you do that experiment and let's say 2,200 calories seems like it's your calorie maintenance, so the amount of calories your body burns per day where you're not losing or gaining anything, then that's probably how much you need, right? But if you are in a place where you actually want to lose body fat over time, then the amount of calories you need in a day is going to be less than that to achieve that goal. Now, that lower number is not going to be the amount of calories you would want to eat forever for the rest of your life long term, right? Because if you're eating in a calorie deficit, eating less calories than what you burn, that's not sustainable to do forever, even if you're doing it at a sustainable pace. Even if you are losing weight the right way at a healthy pace, you need to periodize things between phases of fat loss and phases of maintaining your weight, where you will increase your calories a little bit during those maintenance phases while you're practicing maintaining your weight to giving your body a break from being in a fat loss phase, and the periods where you bring calories down in a fat loss phase to kind of chip away and lose that body fat. And something else we implement with clients too is 1 or 2 days of the week during their fat loss phases, we will actually have those days, 1 or 2 days each week, purposely around their calorie maintenance to kind of give their body a break from this calorie deficit they're achieving within the fat loss phase within each week too, if that makes sense. So how many calories you need in a day for fat loss is going to vary. Like some people, some clients we have, their body responds really well to, okay, we find out their maintenance, let's say it's 2,200, and to lose about a pound of body fat per week and to see a success in a fat loss phase, we bring their calories down by about 500. So maybe we bring their calories down to 1,700, let's say, and they consistently lose about a pound of body fat each week on average over multiple weeks. And then obviously, like I said, we periodize that through maintenance phases every few months, along the way. Other clients, because their metabolism maybe adapts a little bit more when they drop calories, maybe they do a little bit better of dropping calories a little bit more initially. And maybe if their maintenance is at 2,200, they need to bring their calories down to maybe like 1,500 to see that, 1 pound on average per week of fat loss. Some clients, maybe their metabolism adapts really well, but also they experience a lot of hunger when they drop calories even by 500. So some clients, also based on their stature, clients that are shorter in smaller body weights, you don't want to implement a larger calorie deficit with someone who is smaller. So like we have some clients where their estimated maintenance is maybe at 1,800 and we bring calories down to 1,500. So we're only bringing calories down by about 300 compared to where their maintenance is because of all these other variables. So the amount of calories that you reduce your intake by compared to your maintenance once you figure that out is very individual. A good starting point is, okay, let me bring calories down by about 400 to 500 after I figure out my maintenance. But those are just some rough numbers to give you an idea. But this is really something that to truly find out, you have to log your food for a given amount of time, log the body weight trends or body fat trends you see while eating a certain amount of food, and keep track of also like how your energy feels, your performance in the gym, your workouts, and so on, your hunger, to really find out where that true maintenance mark is for you. Because we've had clients where we've put their information in these calculators and their maintenance level, maintenance calories, so the amount of calories they can eat while maintaining their weight, ends up falling right in the middle of these ranges. So like these calorie calculators for some people are really accurate. For others, we've had some clients where we're able to build their calories up a couple hundred or a few hundred more than what this calculator shows us, which is good, right? That's more food that they can actually eat compared to what these numbers spit out in this equation. And they're able to maintain their weight there, which is great. And that gives us more flexibility when it comes to fat loss phases. There are some clients too, where this calculator might say they should be burning 2,100 calories per day, but based off of them tracking their food regularly, seeing how their body reacts, maybe they burn a couple hundred calories less actually than that per day. So it's not perfect. It's there to give you a rough guide. This is probably where things are, but you really have to kind of do that self-experiment to truly find it. And this is where, having a coach is super helpful because, our clients can log their food, log their body weight, and we keep track of these trends and everything and look at it and take in all the data so they don't have to analyze this all themselves. But that's how you would find that number. But, a calorie calculator like that is a decent place to start. And then when it comes to protein, as far as how many grams of protein you need in a day, determining what a healthy or an appropriate goal weight is for you, if you're somebody who has a lot of body weight to lose, is kind of the first step. So if let's say you are somebody who you have over 20 pounds to lose, let's say to be at a healthy body weight, maybe you need to lose, let's say 40 pounds and you're 200 pounds. So your kind of goal body weight that's healthy, sustainable, and realistic for you is let's say 160. Do 0.8 times that number, and that will give you a good rough kind of minimum protein goal to aim for. So off the top of my head, I'm trying to do mental math. If you're 160 pounds times 0.8, I'm assuming that's probably going to come out to somewhere around maybe 120 grams, let's say a protein minimum. I'm going to just guess maybe around 115. That's probably realistic if 160 is a realistic goal weight for you. A lot of numbers you'll see thrown out there are like 1 gram per pound of body weight, which is pretty excessive for most people. You could do 1 gram per pound of your goal weight. That's not like too excessive for most people. But if you're somebody who has a lot of weight to lose, it doesn't make any sense to base your protein number off of your actual current body weight, because you don't need more protein for just weighing more. You need more protein based on the amount of lean body mass that you have. So basically, all the body weight that you have on your frame, not counting the body fat. So that's why it's more important or better to use your approximate goal body weight to find out what your probably protein minimum that you want to aim for is, and probably being somewhere between zero point 0.8 and 1 gram per pound of goal body weight is a good. If you're somebody who really loves protein and likes to eat a little bit more, you could definitely go up to like 1.2 grams per goal weight, and it's not going to be detrimental to you. Like, it's not going to hurt your body, but 0.8 is usually pretty sufficient for most people. So hopefully that answers your question there. And that's not something you really need to periodize. Like, you could stick with 0.8 grams per pound of your goal body weight really like forever. Like, there's no reason to change that. So last question is from Peggy. So, do you have any workouts using bands and resistance bands only? I had rotator cuff surgery, bicep, I don't know. I'm going to skip that word. Not to me, I think. I don't know if that's a typo. Not familiar with that word, and maybe that's just my ignorance or lack of knowledge there. And a bone spur removed, and will be at least 3 to 6 months before actually using weights. Would like to do lower body with the bands and work my way up to the resistance bands once cleared with my shoulder. So here are my thoughts on this question, and I'm going to kind of touch on a few points regarding this. One is, I would question, like, myself, like, let's say if I'm your coach, I would be like, okay, what is your physical therapist or your doctor telling you to do? Because one thing that I just want to be clear before I answer this question is, like, my specialty is nutrition for like health and fat loss and body composition, and also workouts for changing your body composition and building strength, building muscle, and how to use proper form to prevent as many injuries as possible and to progress as much as possible. So when it comes to somebody having a very specific injury like this and having had surgery, this is really, I would say, out of my wheelhouse to recommend certain types of exercises for. Like, this is just out of my scope of practice. Like, I wouldn't feel confident like prescribing somebody specific or something specific to somebody like this. Now, I'll give just my honest thoughts on the question, but I just wanted to put that caveat there. So my thoughts on this is, this like 3 to 6 month period before you're using actual weights, is that what your doctor had told you? Hey, I do not want you using weights for 3 to 6 months. Or is that something that you just like think is probably going to be? Or did your doctor maybe say you probably won't be able to use weights for 3 to 6 months, but he didn't necessarily say, hey, don't lift weights for that long? And did your doctor say bands are okay? And if so, I would love to know the maybe reasoning behind it, not to like question what your doctor said or your physical therapist, but just to kind of get the rationale. Because from my perspective, right, you could do any exercise that you typically do with a dumbbell, you could do with a band. So like a squat that you normally would do with, let's say, dumbbells in each hand, or like a back squat with a weight on your back, you could do that with bands by just grabbing some kind of band that maybe has like a little handle that you can step on, and then wrapping the band around your shoulders so it has a little bit of a resistance there, and then squat up and down. Even for like upper body exercises, for like bicep curls, like dumbbell curls, you could just grab a band that maybe you step on, and then the other side has a handle, and you do bicep curls with the band, right? So any exercise that you do with dumbbells, like I know, Peggy, you're in our community, so you have access to the workouts that I program. All of those exercises on any of those workouts, especially like the workouts that are home with dumbbell workouts, you can just put a resistance band in place for the dumbbells. And as long as you have a way to like rig it up to where that band is not going to move, something that you can step on, or you could hook it against something, you can do those exercises. Like, there was a time where I actually went to Africa for about 3 weeks for grad school, which was a really great experience. Maybe I'll do another podcast episode on that. We went on a safari, saw all the animals like in their actual wildlife, which was a wild experience. Was there for 3 weeks, and we weren't really able to make it to any type of gym. They did have a gym on the campus we were staying at, but I think we only went there, like, once or twice because we were so busy. I brought some resistance bands with me, these Elite FTS bands. They didn't even have a handle on them, but they were just, like, one big loop, and what I did was I did basically what I described. Like, I stood on the band, pulled the band up on my shoulders, and did squats that way. I did the same thing as Romanian deadlifts. I like stood on the band, wrapped it really tight around my hands, and did Romanian deadlifts that way. I hooked the band up, I believe, to either my feet, which is kind of sketchy because if the band like slipped off my foot, I would get hit in the face. But I hooked it up to either my feet or a sturdy table or chair. I can't remember. And I did like seated band rows. So any exercise, as long as you can hook it up like that, you can do. Another thing I did was I did like chest press with the band where I wrapped the band like around my back and then grabbed the other side of the band like around my arms and basically did chest press with a band around me. So all these exercises you can do with bands. But my, I guess, question would be, what about using a band is better for your recovery than using just really light weight? Because if you have a lifting restriction because of this surgery, I would assume it's more so about the amount of resistance that weight might give you. Like your doctor is like, hey, we're not going to lift weights for 3 to 6 months because he doesn't want that muscle or that joint or that area to get a certain amount of stress on it. Whereas you can give yourself the same amount of stress using bands as you can with dumbbells. Like I have some really heavy, sturdy bands in my gym, and I can try to do bicep curls with them, and it's going to be harder than if I were to use, like a 10-pound dumbbell. Like if you can buy these luggage scales on like Amazon or online or anywhere that you might know what I'm talking about, but these luggage scales where they have like a little hook on one end and you could hook it on like your bag or your luggage and it will tell you what the weight is. Well, what you can do is you can grab a band and hook it on the band while the band is just like a little bit stretched and it might show, okay, there's 5 pounds of resistance on this band. But you pull that luggage scale farther, so you stretch that band out, and when that band is maybe stretched an extra 6 inches, now there's like 15 pounds of resistance on that band actually, like pulling that band in that opposite direction. So the bands that I have, like if I were to try to do bicep curls with that, that would be harder than me doing bicep curls with a 10-pound dumbbell because those bands probably have like once I start pulling them more than a few inches, like 20 pounds, 25 pounds of resistance, maybe at least, maybe even more. So I think sometimes people think like a band is going to be safer, but in some aspects, like depending on how light of bands you have, like that actually might be worse for you to try to use than if you were to just try to use like really light dumbbells, especially too when you factor in the resistance curve, what's called, of bands. So bands, obviously, like I kind of just described, the more you stretch them, the quote unquote heavier they get or the more resistance you get. So if you were to try to like do a squat with a band on your back, it's going to feel a little bit more awkward because as that band is stretched more, it's going to like the resistance is going to ramp up. Like in the bottom part of your squat where the band is very loose, like if let's say if you do have it like, on your shoulders and you're standing on the other end, the bottom of the squat, you might have like 2 pounds of actual resistance on your back. But as you get to the top of that squat and that band really stretches, now you might have like 50 pounds of resistance on there. And that's like a big difference. And especially when you're kind of dealing with some kind of like recovery from injury, it's awkward to kind of handle that if not, you're not used to it. Whereas I would say like it's in some ways probably even safer to just use actual weights and just use lower weights. So like now you can put like 10 pounds on your back, let's say, or hold on to 10 pounds. And now it's 10 pounds throughout the whole entire range of motion. So you're not dealing with that huge influx in resistance like at the top of the squat. So everything's really consistent. So I guess like my thought would be like if we're going to try to do some kind of resistance with bands, like is your doctor okaying that or your physical therapist okaying that? And what the rationale is behind saying, hey, bands are okay versus weights, unless maybe they just assume like trust that you're going to use really light bands. In that case, like I think really light weights would do just the same trick, or I guess, be just as effective if that's what I'm referring to. And then to add on to this, right? If you want to do bands for lower body, or let's even say like really light weights for lower body. I think what would be more beneficial for you based on just what you said about recovering from this, if you're going to really focus on lower body and, maybe it's feasible for you, maybe it's not, but I think it would be smarter to go to an actual gym and just do machine based exercises. That way, you don't have to worry about like trying to hook a band to your back so you have some kind of resistance with lower body. Now, obviously, you can just do like body weight squats at home without any weight, but obviously, you probably want it to be challenging, right? And it sounds like that's the whole reason why you would even try to use a band is to try to make it, more challenging than body weight. So if you're trying to like really get the most out of your lower body training during this 3 to 6 month period where you probably can't do much with your upper body, like I really would suggest is going to the gym. And that way you can do like a leg press machine, especially the ones with the little pin that you change like the weights that you use. So you don't have to even like pick up any weights to like load up the machine maybe. You could use the leg press machine, you could use the leg extension machine, the seated or lying leg curl machine. You can use the like seated abduction machine where, you have the pads on the outsides of your legs or your knees and you spread your legs. You can use the adductor machine where you have the pads on the insides of your knees and you squeeze, your legs together to work those muscles. You could do some gyms even have like hip thrust machines where you could do hip thrusts that's set up in a machine. You obviously could do things like a calf raise machine. So I think like if you have a physical limitation and especially when it's in your upper body and you're trying to get the most out of your lifting, um, like going to the gym, even just like once a week, but especially to like twice if you can get there and do two really solid lower body workouts with those machines, that's going to be your safest option. And I think the second safest option would probably be to just either do body weight stuff and get really close to failure or use like lighter weights. I don't think the resistance bands would actually be either more effective than actual weights. I actually think they'd probably be less effective than like lighter weights, but I also don't think they would be safer than lighter weights either, unless there is a very specific reason where maybe your physical therapist or doctor recommended bands because maybe they want you to do something with a different resistance profile or resistance curve. Maybe they want you to do exercises in a way where the beginning part of the exercise, because the band isn't stretched as much, is really light for you. But the top of the exercise or the finishing part of the rep is really hard for you. Maybe they, for some reason, want you to do that. And this is why, like, I would obviously, like, if you were a one-on-one client, we would be talking more in depth. I'd be getting more info of, like, what your doctor or whoever, is actually saying. But that would be my only rationale for recommending bands over dumbbells is there a specific reason why you would want the resistance profile to be heavier at the top or heavier at the end range of motion of a rep and easier at the bottom? If not, then just using lighter dumbbells makes more sense to me. Or what makes the most sense, like I said, is especially if you want to get the most out of your lower body, is going to the gym using those lower body machines. So hopefully that answered your question there, Peggy. Those were all the questions. Hopefully you guys like these. Be on the lookout for more Q&A posts inside of the Facebook group. That way you can get your questions answered and I can, help you out as much as possible. So appreciate you all and I will see you guys in the next one.